Ladies and gentlemen, you feel alone. You feel like nobody understands the weight you carry. You wonder why, despite your prayers, despite your faith, despite the good you pour into the world, loneliness keeps knocking at your door. Let me tell you something. Loneliness is not a punishment. It is preparation. It is protection. It is purpose in disguise. When God chooses you, when He sets you apart, He doesn't send you through the easy road. No. He puts you in the fire. He isolates you. He strips away the distractions. Because where you're going, not everyone can come with you. Not everyone can handle your anointing. See, when Esther was chosen to be queen, she didn't just walk into the palace. She went through a season of preparation, of solitude, of refinement. When Joseph had a dream of greatness, he didn't go straight to the throne. He was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and locked in a prison before he stepped into his destiny. That loneliness you feel, that's your preparation ground. That's your fire. That's where God is shaping you, molding you, stretching you, so that when the door opens, you're ready to walk through it with power. The enemy will try to use loneliness to break you. He'll whisper, "You're forgotten." He'll say, "Nobody sees you." But let me tell you something. God sees you. God hears you. And He's hiding you for a reason. See, some of you, you've been praying for companionship, praying for connections, but God isn't delaying. He's protecting. Because the wrong people can derail your purpose. The wrong relationships can weaken your anointing. And so He isolates you, not to hurt you, but to elevate you. You are not alone. You are being positioned. You are being refined. You are being chosen for greater. So don't let the loneliness break you. Let it build you. Let it strengthen you. Let it remind you that God's favor isn't just about blessings. It's about preparation for something so big, so powerful, that when it comes, you'll look back and understand why He had to set you apart. Keep walking, keep praying, keep trusting. Because when the time comes, when God says now, you will not only step into the room, you will own it. Being chosen by God is a distinction that comes with a cost, and one of the highest costs is isolation. Throughout history, those who were called for divine purposes found themselves set apart, often feeling separated from the very people they once connected with. This separation is not accidental, but intentional, designed to cultivate something deeper within them. When God selects someone for a higher calling, He removes the distractions, the unnecessary attachments, and the voices that do not align with His plan. Isolation is not rejection, it is refinement. It is the process of breaking away from the familiar to step into the extraordinary. A woman chosen and favored by God often experiences this isolation because her path is not ordinary. It is not meant to be crowded with the opinions, validations, or companionships that could deter her from her destiny. Consider the biblical examples of those who were chosen. Moses was isolated in the wilderness before leading a nation. Joseph was thrown into a pit and imprisoned before stepping into his role as a ruler. Esther spent time in preparation, away from everyone, before she could step into her purpose. The pattern is clear. Divine selection necessitates divine separation. God pulls His chosen ones away from the noise to sharpen their discernment, to increase their dependence on Him, and to build them into the vessels He needs them to be. Isolation forces growth. It creates a space where faith is tested and strengthened. It teaches reliance on God rather than people. It eliminates the external influences that could weaken the mission ahead. Being set apart can feel like a lonely experience, but in reality, It is a sacred period of transformation. It is in this solitude that the chosen woman learns who she is, who God is, and what she is truly called to do. Separation is never easy, but it is necessary when God is preparing someone for something greater. When a woman is chosen and favored by God, she often finds herself in a season of separation that feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar. This is not a punishment, but a process. God removes her from environments, relationships, and circumstances that no longer align with where He is taking her. What seems like loss is actually divine positioning, ensuring that nothing interferes with the preparation required for her purpose. This kind of separation often brings loneliness, but it is in that solitude where transformation begins. Without the noise of distractions, she can hear God more clearly. Without the constant validation of others, she learns to trust His voice above all else. Separation strips away the unnecessary and refines what is essential. It builds character, deepens faith, and strengthens resilience. It is during this time that she is molded into the person she needs to be in order to carry the weight of her calling. God has a pattern of separating those He intends to use mightily. Before Moses led the Israelites, he spent years in the wilderness. Before Jesus began His ministry, He withdrew into the desert for 40 days. Before Paul became one of the greatest apostles, he spent time in isolation being transformed by God. This pattern is intentional because preparation cannot happen in comfort. Growth requires discomfort, and elevation demands pruning. When God is preparing a woman for something extraordinary, He often calls her into a space where she is solely dependent on Him. It is in this place of separation that her foundation is fortified, her wisdom increases, and her purpose becomes undeniable. What feels like isolation is actually an invitation to be made ready for what is coming next. Being called by God is an honor, but it carries a weight that few can truly understand. A woman chosen for a divine purpose will often find herself carrying burdens that others cannot see and responsibilities that set her apart. The calling is not just about blessings and favor. It is about endurance, sacrifice, and obedience. It requires a strength that goes beyond physical ability, demanding spiritual, emotional, and mental resilience. The weight of a calling can feel overwhelming because it stretches a person beyond their comfort zone. It demands more prayer, more patience, and more trust in God. There are moments of doubt, moments of exhaustion, and moments where she may wonder why she was chosen at all. The journey is often lonely because not everyone will understand her path. Some will question her decisions, and others will distance themselves because they cannot comprehend the level of faith required to walk in obedience. Every great assignment in the Bible came with a heavy weight. Moses struggled with self-doubt when God called him to lead a nation. Esther risked her life to save her people. Mary carried the responsibility of birthing the Savior of the world, facing judgment and misunderstanding along the way. The weight of their callings was not easy, but it was necessary. The burden is not meant to break a woman, but to refine her. It is meant to build endurance, to strengthen character, and to deepen reliance on God. A woman with a calling is often tested in ways others are not. She faces battles that others do not see because her purpose is greater. The weight she carries is evidence of the impact she is destined to make. It is heavy, but it is holy. It is challenging, but it is divine. It is exhausting, but it is worth it. When God calls a woman to something greater, He also calls her to a journey that not everyone is meant to take with her. The path of purpose is often a road of separation, where familiar faces begin to fade and relationships shift in ways she never expected. It is not because she is unworthy of companionship, but because her destiny requires a different level of alignment. Some people are not equipped to handle the weight of where she is going, and forcing them to stay will only slow her down. There are seasons in life where God intentionally removes certain people, not as a sign of rejection, but as a form of protection. Some relationships are only meant for a season, meant to teach a lesson or provide support for a particular moment in time. Holding on to those who were never meant to stay will create unnecessary frustration and delay. Just as Abraham had to leave his homeland to step into God's promise, there are times when stepping into destiny requires leaving behind what feels familiar. Walking in divine purpose means walking with discernment. Not everyone who starts the journey will finish it. Some will misunderstand the calling. Some will be threatened by the favor. Some will simply be incapable of growing at the pace that purpose demands. There will be moments of loneliness, moments of wondering why certain people had to go. But God never removes without reason. Every departure makes room for the right connections, the right support, and the right people who can handle the assignment ahead. Growth requires separation. Elevation demands letting go. The higher the calling, the smaller the circle becomes. The woman who embraces this truth will walk with peace, knowing that God's plan is always greater than temporary attachments. Isolation is not a sign of abandonment. It is a season of transformation. When God sets a woman apart, He is not punishing her. Strength is not built in moments of ease, but in seasons of solitude, where faith is tested, endurance is refined, and dependence on God becomes unshakable. The absence of people forces her to lean on Him in ways she never had to before. It strips away distractions, eliminates external validation, and pushes her to discover the depth of her own resilience. In these seasons, there are no crowds cheering, no constant affirmation, no familiar hands to hold. It is just her and God, walking through moments of uncertainty, pressing through feelings of loneliness, and discovering that true strength is not found in the presence of others, but in the presence of God. It is in these quiet places where she learns the power of prayer, the necessity of faith, and the beauty of trusting God's process. Just as gold is refined in fire, isolation becomes the fire that removes impurities, strengthens character, and equips her for the journey ahead. Throughout Scripture, those who carried great purpose walked through seasons of solitude. David was anointed long before he was crowned, and spent years in the wilderness before stepping into his destiny. Jesus himself withdrew to the mountains to pray, showing that isolation is not a weakness but a strategy. Strength is built in the quiet moments, in the hidden seasons, in the times when no one is watching. What feels like a lonely road is actually a sacred path of development. The woman who embraces her season of isolation will emerge stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the purpose that awaits her. A woman chosen by God will often find herself misunderstood by the world. Her values, her choices, and her unwavering faith set her apart in a way that many cannot comprehend. She sees life through the lens of purpose, while others operate from a place of temporary fulfillment. What matters to her does not always matter to those around her, and the way she moves, speaks, and believes can make people uncomfortable. She is not trying to be different. She simply is, because the calling on her life demands it. Being misunderstood is one of the heaviest burdens of divine favor. People may question why she waits on God instead of rushing into decisions. They may not understand why she chooses a path of integrity when shortcuts seem easier. She will face criticism for her faith, for her standards, for the way she refuses to settle for less than what God has promised her. Some will call her too spiritual, too serious, too different, but what they fail to see is that she is walking in obedience, not for their approval, but for God's purpose. Jesus himself was misunderstood. His own people rejected him because they could not grasp the magnitude of his mission. Joseph was despised by his own brothers because of the favor on his life. Noah was mocked for building an ark when there was no sign of rain. This pattern is not new. The world will always struggle to understand those who are set apart by God. A chosen woman cannot expect to fit in when she was born to stand out. She may walk alone, she may be questioned, she may even be ridiculed. But she must remember that divine purpose is never meant to be understood by those who are not called to carry it. A woman who is chosen by God will not be for everyone. Her presence carries a weight that not all can handle, and her journey requires a level of faith and discipline that many are not willing to embrace. She is not meant to fit into every space, be accepted by every crowd, or be understood by every person she encounters. Her calling demands separation, and that separation often manifests in relationships, friendships, and even family connections that slowly drift away. When God marks someone for a divine purpose, He also protects them from connections that could interfere with their assignment. Some people are only meant to be part of her journey for a season, and trying to hold on to them beyond their time can create unnecessary struggle. The wrong people can drain her energy, distract her from her mission, and even discourage her from pursuing what God has placed in her heart. She will experience moments where she wonders why certain relationships never worked out, why some people walked away, and why she often feels alone despite having so much to give. But what she may not see in the moment is that every departure is a form of protection. God's chosen ones require relationships that align with their destiny. She needs people who uplift rather than pull her down, who pray for her rather than compete with her, and who understand that her journey is different. The favor on her life can intimidate those who do not understand it, and rather than celebrate her, some will reject her simply because they cannot handle the light she carries. It is not her job to shrink or to make herself more digestible for others. Her only responsibility is to walk confidently in her calling, knowing that the right people, those who are assigned to her journey, will recognize her value and walk with her in purpose. When God's favor rests on a woman, it does not go unnoticed. Favor is not just a blessing, it is a mark, a distinction that sets her apart. But with that favor comes opposition, because not everyone will celebrate what God is doing in her life. Some will question why she is chosen, why doors open for her, and why she seems to carry a grace that others do not. Favor has a way of exposing the hearts of those around her, revealing envy, insecurity, and resentment in places she never expected. Throughout history, favor has always attracted opposition. Joseph's own brothers despised him because of the favor on his life, leading them to betray him. David was anointed as king, but before he could step into his destiny, he faced the jealousy and wrath of Saul. Even Jesus, walking in divine favor, was met with resistance, rejection, and hatred from those who could not comprehend his purpose. This is the nature of favor. It does not just bring open doors, it also brings obstacles, tests, and battles. Opposition comes because favor disrupts the status quo. It shifts the atmosphere, changes expectations, and challenges the limits that others have placed on themselves. When a woman walks in favor, she does not blend in, she stands out. And for those who are threatened by what she carries, opposition becomes their natural response. Some will try to discourage her, some will speak against her, and some will attempt to block her path. But opposition is not a sign to retreat. It is confirmation that she is walking in the right direction. The presence of enemies is often proof of elevation. The greater the favor, the greater the resistance. But what others oppose, God protects. What they try to block, He accelerates. Favor may attract opposition, but it also attracts divine victory. Loneliness can feel like an unbearable burden, but for a woman chosen by God, it is often the doorway to a deeper relationship with Him. When the noise of the world fades, when people walk away, and when familiar comforts are stripped away, she is left with one constant: God. It is in those quiet, solitary moments that she learns His voice more clearly, feels His presence more deeply, and discovers a level of intimacy she may never have known otherwise. When life is full of distractions, relationships, and obligations, it is easy to rely on people for validation, comfort, and support. But when loneliness sets in, when there is no one to turn to, she is left with no choice but to seek the one who never leaves. And in that seeking, something shifts. What once felt like isolation becomes a sacred space where God reveals himself in ways that only solitude allows. She begins to recognize that he was always there, waiting for her to depend on him completely. Many of the greatest figures in the Bible encountered God most intimately when they were alone. Moses met God on the mountain. Elijah heard his still, small voice in a cave. Jesus himself often withdrew from the crowds to be alone with the Father. There is a reason why God allows seasons of solitude, because there are revelations, lessons, and transformations that can only happen in his presence, away from the distractions of the world. Loneliness becomes the training ground for unwavering faith. It strips away everything that is temporary and reveals the only thing that is eternal, God's love. The deeper the solitude, the deeper the connection. The more isolated she feels, the closer he draws. And in that closeness, she finds the strength, peace, and purpose that no human relationship could ever provide. A woman chosen by God will experience battles that go beyond the physical. She will face opposition in the spiritual realm that seeks to derail her purpose. Spiritual warfare is real, and the enemy does not attack those who have nothing to offer. He goes after those who are marked by God for something greater. When a woman carries divine favor, when she walks in obedience, and when she begins to step into her calling, she becomes a threat to the kingdom of darkness. The attacks come in many forms: discouragement, doubt, fear, loneliness, and even betrayal. But they are all meant to shake her faith and distract her from her purpose. This battle is unseen, but its effects are felt deeply. It can manifest as an overwhelming sense of exhaustion, moments of intense fear, or circumstances that seem to work against her at every turn. The closer she gets to her destiny, the fiercer the attacks become. The enemy does not waste time on those who are complacent. He targets those who are advancing, those who are growing, those who are standing firm in their faith. The more ground she takes spiritually, the more resistance she will face. The Bible makes it clear that the battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of darkness. This is why prayer is not optional. It is a weapon. Worship is not just an expression, it is a defense. Staying in God's word is not just a discipline, it is protection. A chosen woman cannot afford to fight this battle with natural strength alone. She must remain covered, standing firm in faith, knowing that if God has called her, he has also equipped her. No weapon formed against her will prosper, because the one who called her is greater than anything that rises against her. Greatness comes with a price, and one of the highest costs is solitude. A woman chosen for something extraordinary will often find herself walking a path that few can understand. The weight of her calling, the depth of her purpose, and the uniqueness of her journey separate her from the crowd. While others move in groups, she finds herself moving alone, not because she desires isolation, but because the level of her assignment requires a different kind of preparation. Solitude is not loneliness. It is the refining ground where she is shaped, strengthened, and set apart. The greatest figures in history, both biblical and beyond, endured seasons of isolation before stepping into their purpose. Joseph was left in a pit and later imprisoned before he ruled. Moses spent years in the wilderness before leading a nation. Even Jesus withdrew from people to spend time alone with the Father. This pattern is not accidental. Solitude is where revelation happens, where wisdom is gained, and where strength is built. The higher the calling, the fewer people can accompany her. Not everyone is meant to walk with her. Not everyone can handle the weight of her journey, and not everyone can understand the depth of what she carries. She will experience moments of feeling unseen, moments where she wonders why she cannot seem to fit in, but that is because she was never meant to blend in. God sets apart those whom he intends to use greatly, and that setting apart often feels like loneliness. It is in solitude where she learns to depend fully on God. It is where her faith deepens, her discernment sharpens, and her resilience grows. The cost of greatness is high, but those who embrace solitude will find themselves prepared for the extraordinary purpose that awaits them. There are seasons when a woman chosen by God feels invisible, overlooked, and hidden from opportunities, recognition, and relationships. It can be frustrating to know that she carries gifts, wisdom, and purpose, yet doors seem to remain closed. But what feels like delay is often divine protection. God hides those he is preparing, because exposure before the right time can lead to destruction. Being hidden is not a punishment. It is a strategy. A seed does not grow in the open. It is buried in the soil, unseen, before it breaks through the surface. In the same way, God conceals his chosen ones in seasons of development. He removes distractions, shields them from unnecessary battles, and strengthens them in private before revealing them in public. Joseph had dreams of greatness, yet he was hidden in prison before stepping into the palace. David was anointed as king, but spent years in obscurity, tending sheep, before he ever sat on a throne. Even Jesus, though the Son of God, spent 30 years in preparation before stepping into his public ministry. Being hidden protects from premature attacks, unnecessary distractions, and environments that are not yet ready to receive what she carries. If she is revealed too soon, she may be surrounded by people who cannot handle her purpose, who may try to limit her, or who may even attempt to destroy what God is building within her. The waiting season is not wasted. It is where strength, wisdom, and patience are developed. When God finally reveals her, it will be at the right time, in the right place, and for the right purpose. She will not have to force doors open because what is meant for her will come effortlessly. Until then, she must trust that her season of being hidden is simply God's way of preparing her for something far greater. Loneliness is not just an emotional experience, it is a place of training. A woman chosen by God will often go through seasons where she feels disconnected from others, not because she is forgotten, but because she is being equipped for something greater. In this place of isolation, she is not simply waiting, she is being strengthened, refined, and prepared for the next level of her calling. When the noise of the world is stripped away, she learns to hear God's voice with clarity. In loneliness, distractions fade, and she is forced to rely on him in ways she never had to before. This season teaches her to stand firm without external validation, to develop unshakable faith, and to find confidence in her identity in God, rather than in people. Many women struggle with loneliness because they see it as rejection, but in reality, it is divine positioning. God pulls her away from certain relationships, opportunities, and environments, not to harm her, but to shape her. Every great leader in the Bible experienced solitude before stepping into purpose. Joseph was isolated in a prison before ruling in a palace. Moses was alone in the wilderness before leading a nation. Jesus himself spent time in solitude before beginning his ministry. This is the pattern of preparation. Loneliness is the training ground where endurance is built, where faith is tested, and where deep wisdom is gained. This season is not meant to break her, but to build her. The strength she develops in solitude will be the very thing that sustains her when she steps into her calling. God is not punishing her. He is preparing her, teaching her that true strength is not found in the presence of people, but in the presence of God. The people a woman surrounds herself with can either propel her toward her purpose or hold her back from it. The wrong relationships, no matter how comfortable or familiar, can create unnecessary delays, distractions, and detours on the path that God has set before her. Not everyone has the capacity to walk with her, understand her vision, or support her calling. Some connections drain her energy, some plant seeds of doubt, and others pull her into cycles of complacency. When God calls a woman to something greater, He often requires her to evaluate the relationships in her life. Some people are only meant for a season, yet holding on to them beyond their time can slow down her progress. Lot traveled with Abraham, but it wasn't until they separated that Abraham received God's full promise. Jonah was on the wrong ship, and his presence put others in danger. Even Jesus had to remove himself from certain places where faith was lacking. When the wrong people remain too long, they can block what God is trying to release. Delays happen when she tries to carry people who were never meant to go where she is going. Some relationships are distractions in disguise, keeping her busy but not productive, emotionally invested but not growing. The enemy often uses unhealthy connections to drain her focus and keep her from stepping fully into her purpose. Recognizing this is not about arrogance or superiority, it is about discernment. She must learn to recognize who is assigned to her journey and who is simply passing through. Letting go of the wrong people may feel difficult, but it creates space for the right ones. God will never take something away without replacing it with something better. The faster she releases what is holding her back, the sooner she will walk into everything He has prepared for her. Waiting feels like one of the hardest things to do, especially when a woman knows she is called to something greater. In a world that glorifies speed and instant success, waiting can seem like wasted time. But in God's plan, waiting is never wasted. It is a season of preparation, refinement, and alignment. It is where character is built, faith is strengthened, and endurance is developed. Every delay has a purpose, and every moment spent in waiting is shaping her for what is coming. God does not withhold blessings to punish. He withholds to prepare. A woman may be praying for an opportunity, a relationship, or a breakthrough, but if she receives it too soon, it may crumble under the weight of unprepared hands. David was anointed as king long before he ever sat on the throne. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but spent years in prison before stepping into his destiny. Even Jesus spent 30 years in preparation for a 3-year ministry. The waiting season is where skills are sharpened, wisdom is gained, and dependence on God deepens. The waiting period is also a time of testing. Will she trust God's timing, or will she try to force doors open on her own? Will she remain faithful in the unseen moments, or will she grow weary and give up? Many people rush ahead and settle for less because they mistake waiting for stagnation. But those who wait on the Lord are never losing time. They are being positioned for something greater than they could imagine. The longer the wait, the greater the promise. What God is preparing is worth the patience, and when the right time comes, everything will fall into place effortlessly. Waiting is not about standing still. It is about growing, learning, and becoming the woman God has called her to be. A woman chosen by God is never meant to walk alone forever. While there are seasons of isolation, refinement, and separation, God is also working behind the scenes to prepare the right people who will walk alongside her. These are not just casual acquaintances, but divine connections, people who will support, uplift, and align with her purpose. She may feel like she is waiting endlessly, watching others find their circles, their partners, and their communities, but what God is orchestrating for her is not ordinary. The right people are not just those who show up when times are good. They are those who understand the weight of her calling and are equipped to walk with her through every season. God is preparing individuals who will not be intimidated by her strength, jealous of her growth, or threatened by her favor. Instead, they will celebrate her, pray for her, and help push her further into the purpose He has for her. These are relationships built on trust, faith, and divine timing. In the meantime, God is also preparing her. Before He brings the right people into her life, He makes sure she is in the right posture to receive them. Sometimes the delay is not because they are not ready, but because she still needs to heal, grow, and release the wrong relationships. A strong foundation must be built so that when the right people arrive, the connections will be meaningful, purposeful, and lasting. God does not send people prematurely. He aligns them perfectly at the right moment when they will add value and not harm. The wait may feel long, but when the right people come, she will understand why nothing else worked before. They will not be forced or temporary. They will be part of the destiny God has been preparing all along. Every trial, every setback, and every moment of loneliness a woman endures is not just for her. It is part of a greater testimony that will inspire others. The struggles she faces, the lessons she learns, and the victories she gains are not meant to be hidden. They are meant to be a light for those who are walking a similar path. God allows certain battles not to break her, but to build her into someone who can stand as a living example of His grace, strength, and faithfulness. There are people who will find hope because she did not give up. There are women who will push through their own trials because they see her resilience. What she is overcoming today will become the very thing that helps someone else believe they can overcome too. She may not realize it now, but the pain she is enduring, the waiting she is experiencing, and the faith she is developing are all pieces of a testimony that will change lives. Many of the greatest leaders in history were shaped through adversity. Joseph's story of betrayal and imprisonment became a testimony of God's divine plan. Esther's courage to step forward saved an entire nation. Even Jesus' journey of suffering led to the greatest victory of all. Just as their stories continue to inspire, her journey will serve as a reminder that God can turn pain into purpose and setbacks into setups for something greater. What she walks through is not in vain. Every tear, every struggle, and every unanswered question is creating a story that will reach people she has yet to meet. Her testimony will remind others that no matter how dark things seem, there is always hope, always purpose, and always a reason to keep going. A woman called by God cannot afford to be easily distracted. Destiny is not something that happens by accident. It requires unwavering focus, discipline, and a determination to stay on the path no matter what comes against her. The enemy's greatest tactic is not always destruction, it is distraction. If he can't stop her, he will try to slow her down with doubt, fear, unnecessary battles, and people who pull her away from what God has called her to do. The journey toward destiny is filled with choices, and each choice either moves her closer to her purpose or delays her from reaching it. She must learn to say no to things that waste her energy and yes to the things that align with her assignment. Not every opportunity is meant to be taken. Not every relationship is meant to be nurtured, and not every battle is meant to be fought. A focused woman understands that her time, energy, and emotions are valuable, and she refuses to invest them in anything that does not serve her purpose. Even Jesus had to remain focused. He did not allow distractions to pull him away from his mission, nor did he waste time proving himself to people who would never understand. He moved with purpose, spoke with intention, and refused to be derailed. A woman walking in destiny must adopt the same mindset. She must guard her heart, protect her vision, and remain committed to the path God has set before her. Focus is not just about avoiding distractions. It is about fixing her eyes on the one who called her. When she locks in on what God has spoken over her life, nothing can shake her. Destiny is too important to be delayed, and the only way to reach it is with unwavering focus. Loneliness is often seen as an uncomfortable place, but it is also a space where true self-discovery happens. When a woman is removed from constant social interactions, outside opinions, and the noise of the world, she is given the opportunity to truly meet herself. In solitude, she is confronted with her thoughts, her desires, and the deepest parts of who she is, without the influence of others shaping her identity. It is in these quiet moments that she begins to understand what she truly values, what she is passionate about, and what she is called to do. Without the pressure of meeting expectations or seeking validation from others, she learns to listen to her own voice and, more importantly, to God's voice. She realizes that she is more than the role she plays, more than the relationships she is in, and more than the labels society places on her. Loneliness forces her to sit with her emotions, to process her past, and to heal from things she may have ignored while being surrounded by others. It teaches her resilience, self-sufficiency, and the ability to find joy within herself rather than relying on external sources. Many women go through life not truly knowing themselves because they have never stepped away long enough to reflect. But when she embraces seasons of solitude, she gains clarity about her strengths, weaknesses, and purpose. The greatest transformations happen in isolation. This is where she learns what she is capable of, what she is willing to fight for, and what she refuses to settle for. The time spent alone is not a punishment, but an invitation to grow, to discover, and to step into the fullness of who she was created to be. A woman walking in faith must understand that God's timing is never rushed, never delayed, but always perfect. Even when things seem to be taking too long, even when doors remain closed, and even when she feels forgotten, God is still working behind the scenes. His timing is not about convenience, but about preparation. What she is waiting for is not just about her desire. It is about alignment, maturity, and the right conditions for his plan to unfold exactly as it should. There are moments when she may feel ready, but God knows what she cannot see. He sees the obstacles ahead, the people who are not meant to be part of her journey, and the dangers that would come with premature blessings. If he has not opened the door yet, it is because what is behind it is still being prepared, or because she is still being refined for what is coming. A blessing given too soon can become a burden, but when received in the right time, it will be sustainable and fulfilling. Waiting on God's timing requires trust, patience, and obedience. It is easy to become frustrated, to compare her journey to others, or to question whether he has forgotten her. But the truth is, delay does not mean denial. Every moment of waiting is shaping her character, strengthening her faith, and positioning her for something greater than she imagined. The promise still stands, but it will manifest when it is meant to, not when she forces it. God's timing ensures that when she steps into her purpose, everything around her will be ready. Her heart, her mind, her relationships, and her opportunities. She may not understand the delays now, but one day she will look back and see that every waiting season was working for her good. Loneliness, waiting, and isolation are not signs of abandonment, but of preparation. A woman chosen by God is not overlooked. She is being set apart. Every delay, every moment of solitude, and every battle she faces is shaping her for the destiny ahead. The weight of her calling may feel heavy, but it is proof that she is meant for something greater. She must remember that separation is not rejection, it is protection. The wrong people, the wrong timing, and the wrong environments cannot follow her where God is leading her. Favor attracts opposition, but it also attracts divine alignment. She is not being hidden to be forgotten. She is being positioned to rise at the appointed time. When she fully embraces the process, she will understand that nothing was wasted. Every tear, every lonely night, every closed door was working together to build the strength, resilience, and faith she needs for the next level. What she carries is not small, and that is why the journey has not been easy. But in the end, God's plan will unfold exactly as it should. The right people will come, the right opportunities will open, and everything she lost will be replaced with something far greater. She is not just waiting, she is becoming. And when the time is right, she will step into everything that was always meant for her.